At the start of the movie, a baby girl named Matilda is shown. She has a father, Harry, a mother, Zinnia, and a big brother, Michael. Her family does not care much about her. As she grows, she shows amazing skills. When she is 4 years old, she starts making her own breakfast because her father is busy selling illegal cars. Her mother is always playing bingo, and her brother is at school. She has read all the magazines at home and wants more books, but her family does not support education and spends all their time watching TV. When she asks for books, her father refuses. Instead of arguing, Matilda quietly goes to the library by herself. She visits every day, and a kind librarian, Mrs. Phillips, suggests she get a library card to borrow books. Matilda happily agrees and starts reading at home. 2 years later, her father comes into her room looking for his car package and is surprised to see her books. He still thinks she is only 4 years old. He takes her to Zinnia, who also believes she is 4. They both get angry and send her away. At that moment, Matilda wishes she had a friend, but she knows it is nearly impossible, so she stays quiet. The next day, Harry comes home celebrating a big business deal. He asks Michael to calculate his profit, but before Michael can answer, Matilda quickly gives the correct answer. Harry gets angry and says that when someone is wrong, they must be punished. So, he locks Matilda in her room. Matilda keeps thinking about what he said and decides to punish her parents in return. She secretly mixes chemicals into Harry's hair oil. The next day, his hair turns white. Worried, he quickly wears a hat and takes Matilda and Michael to his workshop. He doesn't realize that 2 FBI agents are secretly following him. At the workshop, Harry shows them how to trick people into buying worn-out cars. When Matilda calls him a cheater, he gets mad and scolds her. This makes Matilda even more determined to take revenge. Zinnia arrives after winning a game of bingo and asks everyone to get into the car. Before leaving, Matilda hands Harry his cap. They reach a cafe where Zinnia tells Harry to take off his hat. When he refuses, it causes a commotion. Frustrated, Harry takes everyone home, and Zinnia tries to remove his hat. Later, Harry tells everyone to watch TV while having dinner. Michael and Zinnia listen to him, but Matilda chooses to read a book instead. Angry, Harry rips her book apart and forces her to watch TV. Matilda becomes furious, and suddenly, the TV explodes. She is confused and unsure if she caused it. She later discovers her special powers when Harry sells a car and decides to enroll her in school. At school, Matilda befriends a girl named Lavender. Lavender tells her about their strict and cruel headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, who is very reckless. Trunchbull even throws a girl far away, but luckily, she lands on some flowers. After that, Trunchbull sends all the students to their classes. Matilda's teacher, Miss Honey, is kind and caring. Matilda feels comfortable with her and shares her thoughts. Miss Honey notices Matilda's intelligence and tells Trunchbull about it, but Trunchbull refuses to believe her. Seeing Matilda's potential, Miss Honey secretly gives her advanced books to read. Matilda takes the books home and studies them. One day, Miss Honey visits her house to talk to her parents about Matilda's intelligence. However, they mock her and don't care about girls' education. Before leaving, Miss Honey quietly leaves a book for Matilda. The next day, all the students are gathered in the assembly hall. Trunchbull calls a boy named Bruce to the stage and gives him a huge chocolate cake to eat as punishment for secretly eating her cake. Matilda stands up to encourage Bruce, and soon, all the students cheer for him. Bruce manages to finish the entire cake, but Trunchbull gets angry and keeps everyone at school for 5 extra hours as punishment. That night, when Matilda gets home, she tells her parents that 2 strange men are watching their house. However, they assume the men are just salesmen and ignore her. Feeling disappointed, Matilda goes to her room. The next day, Matilda and her friends catch a frog, and Lavender keeps it. Later, when Trunchbull arrives at school, she is in a bad mood because her car isn't working. She unfairly locks Matilda away before heading to class. Lavender decides to take revenge by secretly putting the frog into Trunchbull's glass of water. Meanwhile, Miss Honey notices Matilda is missing, and Lavender tells her that Trunchbull locked her up. She quickly frees Matilda and brings her back to class. When Trunchbull drinks from her glass, she sees the frog and panics. She immediately blames Matilda, but Miss Honey defends her, saying there's no way Matilda could have done it from far away. Just then, Matilda focuses on the glass, and it suddenly falls over, making the frog jump onto Trunchbull. She angrily pushes it away, but the students secretly enjoy the moment. After Trunchbull leaves, Matilda tells Miss Honey that she moved the glass with her mind. However, it doesn't happen again. Miss Honey decides to take Matilda to her home. On the way, they pass by Trunchbull's house. As they continue walking, Miss Honey shares a story. She tells Matilda about a little girl who once lived happily with her family, but when she was just 2 years old, her mother passed away. Later, her father brought his wife's stepsister to take care of her. However, the woman was cruel and mistreated the little girl. When the girl turned 5, her father suddenly died, and she was left to live with the cruel woman, Trunchbull. As she grew older, she moved out and started living in a small cottage. When they arrive at Miss Honey's house, Matilda realizes that the story is actually about Miss Honey herself. Her father, Magnus, had brought Trunchbull into their lives. Trunchbull had taken over everything, including Honey's precious belongings, which were still still in Trunchbull's house. Matilda convinces Miss Honey to go with her to Trunchbull's house to retrieve her things. As they watch carefully, Trunchbull suddenly arrives in her car. They quickly sneak inside to find Honey's belongings. While looking around, Honey opens a chocolate box and tells Matilda about it. She then leads Matilda to the location of her missing things. In a rush, Honey forgets to close the chocolate box properly and follows Matilda. They are so focused that they don't notice Trunchbull returning. They only realize when they hear her shouting at Harry outside. Trunchbull also senses that someone is inside. Miss Honey quickly tells Matilda to escape through the back door while she hides in another room. They barely manage to escape without getting caught. Afterward, Miss Honey makes Matilda promise never to return to Trunchbull's house, and Matilda agrees. When she gets home, she finds Zinnia flirting with two men, Bob and Bill. Harry arrives and angrily sends Bob and Bill away. He then starts scolding Zinnia, but Matilda interrupts and tells him to scold himself instead. Before he can react, she shuts the door and locks him out. Matilda starts recalling the things Harry, Zinnia, and Trunchbull have said, using them as motivation to practice her powers. Over time, she gains better control. One day, she sees Bob and Bill again at the garage. They are trying to take car parts without a warrant. Using her powers, Matilda makes their car roll away and steals a tape with evidence against Harry, hoping it will make him realize his mistakes. Later, Matilda sneaks into Trunchbull's house again. She manages to take Miss Honey's doll, but her ribbon gets stuck. To scare Trunchbull, Matilda uses her powers to create chaos in the house, making it seem like Magnus' ghost is haunting her. She and Miss Honey suspect that Trunchbull might have murdered Magnus, so she tries to make Trunchbull believe that his spirit is seeking revenge. Frightened, Trunchbull rushes to her car, but then notices Matilda's ribbon. However, by the time she realizes it, Matilda has already escaped. The next morning, Matilda gives Miss Honey her doll and some chocolates. Miss Honey is happy, but also worried about Matilda's safety. Their conversation is interrupted when Trunchbull storms into the school. She announces that she will be taking over Miss Honey's class, making Miss Honey even more anxious. She starts looking for a way to protect Matilda and the other students. Matilda is showing her powers to the class when Trunchbull suddenly arrives. She holds up Matilda's ribbon as proof that she had been inside her house. Trunchbull is furious and is about to punish Matilda when something strange happens. Using her powers, Matilda makes the chalk move on the board. It writes Trunchbull's nickname and a message that seems to come from Magnus' ghost. The message demands that Trunchbull return Miss Honey's house and money. Otherwise, Magnus will take revenge. Terrified, Trunchbull starts panicking. Matilda then uses her powers to throw dusters at her, making her fall. The students rush forward, but Trunchbull, still furious, picks up a child and throws him. Matilda quickly saves him with her powers and brings him back safely. Seeing Trunchbull weak and scared, all the kids start throwing food at her. She is completely overwhelmed and finally runs away from the school in fear. With Trunchbull gone, Miss Honey becomes the new principal. She also gets her house back. One day, Matilda is sitting happily at home when Harry, Zinnia, and Michael arrive. Harry has been caught for his illegal activities, and they are planning to flee. However, Matilda refuses to go with them. Instead, she gives them adoption papers, asking them to let Miss Honey be her legal guardian. Seeing no other choice, Harry and Zinnia sign the papers, allowing Matilda to stay with Miss Honey. From then on, Matilda and Miss Honey live happily together, and the movie ends on a joyful note.